All right, switching gears really quick to address Biden's first address to a joint session of Congress is A. Scott Bolden, who is joining me from Washington, D.C. He's a legal analyst and political commentator. All right, Scott, quickly. I was a little concerned when Biden was like 50 minutes into his speech and hadn't mentioned police reform, but when he finally did, he urged both Dems and Republicans to come together and find common ground so Congress could pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. We know qualified immunity is a contentious issue. Dems want it gone. Republicans want to limit the protection as a compromise. But can Dems afford to compromise on this issue?
If they beat back the filibuster, they can. I'm not sure how you shoehorn that in to just getting the simple majority, but they can do anything they want on the Hill if they put their minds to it and they lean in on it. But Biden's call last night really was for the Dems because the GOP has no interest in this and isn't going to compromise. And so the Dems are going to have to go it alone and find a way to get it done by May 25th, the anniversary of George Floyd's murder.
How likely do you think that is?
You know, it's tough. You know, you got to pick off either 10 GOP members. I don't think that's what they're thinking. I'm thinking that if they're negotiating, that somehow they can get something done by the 25th. The problem is who's leading the GOP is Tim Scott, and Tim Scott is on television saying racism doesn't exist in America. You can't have a debate or a thoughtful negotiation when the core issue of police reform is rooted in the reality of racism. I'm sorry, black or white, you got to believe that there's racism in this country because the health and socioeconomic factors that represent racism or systemic racism are manifest truths that are self-evident by the gap in those numbers.
Now, Scott, many have asked why Biden needs Congress to pass police reform at all. Can't he just use the power of an executive order?
Yeah, but you know, the problem is with executive orders, they go when the president goes, if you will. The reality is the federal government needs to lead on this. We need a standard policing program. We need a standard, national standard training program. We need to also put in place how these officers, how their income is affected by their mistakes with a gun badge and the American flag on their uniform. And so the federal government has to lead. Now, having said that, these states on an individual basis can lead, and some of them are, but the reality is this was a campaign promise. The police killing fields of black men around America, and I mean all around America, are real, and unless they've got some mechanism to do away with or severely limit how we abuse qualified immunity, or better yet, how we cease and desist using chokeholds that keep killing black people, it's going to continue. You could see during the Chauvin trial, it was still happening. There is something pervasively wrong with how we train cops and why they think it's okay to go to zero to deadly force simply because you won't comply with their police order. Something's got to change and give, and it'll come with this federal bill that's pending in the Senate now.
Well, there's some critics that say that the bill doesn't go far enough, that the changes are more so on the federal level than the state. What would you say?
Well, I think the feds can lead the way, though, because the states don't want to be in non-compliance with the federal law says, and you'll see whether they're Republican or Democratic states, you'll see they'll use the federal law as a model, and then the states, whether they're Dems or Republicans, can put forth their state legislation that would be consistent with the federal law. May not guarantee it, but it'd be a good message to send to these states. And they'll have to comply with what the federal law says, because that's in that George Floyd Act.
All right, legal analyst and political commentator A. Scott Bolden, thank you.